A typical classroom is a very diverse place. There will be students who excel at reading and enjoy reading and thrive in a reading classroom, and there will also be students who either struggle and have academic needs or just don't enjoy reading. This presentation will help you to figure out ways to support all of your readers. So the first thing we're going to look at is students who have reading deficits, who actually have instructional needs that would help them to become better readers. When I interviewed students about other peers who struggled with reading, they mentioned that they've noticed that these students seem to have had the fun of reading sucked away from them. They're scared to read out loud because they are often made fun of for their reading. They often don't do well in all of their classes, not just their reading class, because reading is such an essential part of those classes, and they are left behind in all of those classes. They are slower at understanding assignments, or sometimes they never come to a full understanding, and they therefore don't participate much. When I asked them what teachers could do to try to help these students, they had several suggestions. Some of them were things like breaking down the assignment and the learning into smaller chunks that would be easier to understand, sitting with students to provide that extra help that they need, giving them more time to complete their assignments so they have the opportunity to think things through and apply their best work, suggesting different strategies when students get stuck, or even reading the text out loud so that active reading isn't a barrier to other learning, summarizing the story if kids need, or asking if kids need help, creating an environment where all students won't feel embarrassed. They recognize that students are being made fun of because they don't have the same reading skills as others, and they know that this environment is important in allowing students to be able to participate fully. They also ask that teachers not force them to read out loud, and that they provide opportunities for additional help. A lot of these suggestions actually align with what research says. You have to realize that it's not too late. No matter how old a student, everyone can continue to improve. Within our core instruction, there are several things we can do to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all learners. We need to make sure that our instruction is explicit and systematic. Teachers should be doing think-alouds and modeling and not just presenting students with assignments. Students also need multiple opportunities for application in which they will have the support of the teacher and appropriate feedback. We need to make sure that we're using meaningful text and then provide coaching on strategies. And even if a student is struggling with reading, everyone deserves to be exposed to the grade level text. It just may mean that some students need more support to be successful with this level of text. We also need to be providing differentiation within our reading class. This means providing targeted instruction in the student's deficit area. For secondary students, these deficits tend to be word study, fluency, vocabulary, comprehension, and motivation. This contrasts with lower elementary students' need, which can include phonics, phonological awareness, fluency, and vocabulary and comprehension. Of all the things that can boost students' achievement in reading, vocabulary instruction tends to have the greatest effect size. Finally, students also need time to apply the strategies they're learning in their appropriate level text, not just a grade level text. So they should be reading a wide range of texts. Now, some students don't have a difficulty with reading. They're just reluctant readers. They don't enjoy reading and therefore choose not to. When I ask students what they see when it comes to reluctant readers, they notice that these students tend to use SparkNotes rather than actually read the text. They dislike school reading so much that they choose not to do any other reading that's not required of them. They don't learn, and they usually are just forced to read by their teachers, and they often get bad grades. Now, when students observe these reluctant readers, they made the assumption that they have bad work ethic or that they are lazy. Sometimes they are frustrated because they see these students disrupting other learners, and so it's not just the reluctant reader whose learning is being halted, but all students have their learning halted. And finally, they recognize that these students tend to comprehend more slowly since they don't have the practice they need to progress. Therefore, a reluctant reader may eventually become a reader with deficits because they aren't getting the application time that they need. When I asked them what their teachers could do to support their peers, they really didn't have a lot of suggestions. They mentioned things like give encouragement, maybe use audiobooks for kids who are more auditory learners, read aloud to the students, and just force kids to read. Most of the time when I asked, though, they just said they didn't know. I wonder if this is because reluctant readers tend to be closer to the students I was interviewing rather than struggling readers. I think it's pretty typical at some point that all high school students experience some reluctance towards reading, and because it's almost asking them about themselves and to be reflective of what they need, they weren't able to step outside and really identify the most effective strategies. So, to help with this, I did some research on the topic. What I found was that we really need to work on increasing motivation. Motivation comes from two things: students seeing value in it, and then knowing that they'll experience success. So, in order to increase our motivation, we need to connect our learning to things that students think matter. They need to see the value in their learning and to know why it's important. We also need to make sure that we start out with activities that set students up for success. These students may have experienced a loop of failure and therefore are much more likely to give up. We need to build up their growth mindset and let them see that they can be successful in the tasks that we ask. Finally, we need to tie our instruction into student strengths. This will also help them to see that they can be successful. In order to help increase this motivation, we can also increase student choice. This helps with ownership and makes them more likely to complete the tasks that we ask. To do this, we need to consider more non-traditional formats for instruction and for assessment. If we provide students with more opportunities to dialogue, we may also engage more reluctant readers. Often students at this age are very social learners and they appreciate the time to be able to reason orally rather than do everything on paper and pencil. We need to reduce our emphasis on testing. We are creating a culture that is killing reading by emphasizing testing more than enjoyment and instruction. And finally, we really need to help match students to engaging texts. One of the most important reasons students cite for why they don't read is that they just don't have anything to read. They don't know what to read. So we should start by presenting them with smaller books that they can get through quickly, maybe graphic novels, something that will be highly engaging. We can do book talks on other stories that will eventually build a ladder up to the more complex texts that we hope kids are reading at this age. And finally, we just need to provide opportunities for free reading, time for them to explore stories. There are tons of suggestions for how to reach reluctant readers. If you would like more suggestions, you can pause the video and type in this URL so that you can reach a magazine that is all about reaching reluctant readers.